we're going to get started since it is 2 o'clock. Welcome everyone this afternoon to today's webinar entitled Meeting Minutes, Making the Most of Everyone's Time. And in the spirit of making the most of everyone's time, I do want to get started on time, so we will begin. Quick housekeeping note, as I'm sure a lot of you may be anticipating or maybe eager to share what you learned here with some of your colleagues. Today's session will be recorded, so please know and look out for the recording of this session. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please do enter those questions within the questions section of WebEx, and we will be sure to address them near the end of the webinar. And if we don't get to them today in the webinar, we will be sure to address them afterwards and send out the answers to everyone who has attended. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joel Kadish. I am the product manager for CMiC Field, CMiC's project management tool. And as I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about meeting minutes. And I'm really excited to be talking about meeting minutes and showing you what we've been working on for the last 10 months or so. And we're really excited to share the new program with you. So with that, let me get into what we're going to actually be showing you today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the entire meeting minutes process that we've designed around this program. We're going to go through creating a meeting, sending meeting invitations, executing a meeting, sending out reports of a meeting, and then creating the follow-on meetings. And at the end of that demonstration, we're going to have time, like I mentioned, to answer your questions. So once again, please pay attention and feel free to type in any questions into the questions section. Now, before we actually jump into the demo, I think it's really important to have a look at where we're coming from. This is obviously the old Meeting Minutes program as it existed in V10X. And one of the things that a lot of customers struggled with, and that we noticed as well, is that the old program was quite binary, right? You had a view state and an edit state. It was a little bit cluttered. There's lots of information here. Some information is very relevant. Some information may be less relevant. And just in general, it's kind of a heavy program. And so with that sort of context, I want you to take a look at where we're going with Meeting Minutes. What we've designed with Meeting Minutes is a workflow and a tool that is much more intuitive, that's a little bit more well organized, and also that is a lot more flexible. So, allowing people to move agenda items around, be a little bit more agile and on your toes with Meeting Minutes and how you're taking them within the meeting. And then also, being able to sort of easily distribute those notes at the end. And that's what I'm hoping that you will take away from this demonstration. But before we dive into the demonstration, I know I'm keeping you in suspense. I do want to take a quick poll in case anyone's already fallen asleep. So I'm going to put 2 polling questions up, and I'd love to see your responses for both of them. And the first question should be launched in a moment. The question is, how are you currently managing your construction project in Meeting Minutes? I'll give some time to answer. Give everyone about 5 more seconds. The answers come in. All right, fantastic. We'll quickly share the results there. So about half of you guys are using the old Meeting Minutes program, which is exciting to see. Hopefully you're gonna like what you see in today's webinar. A lot of you are still using a combination of email and spreadsheets. And so hopefully we'll be able to bring you guys into the new tool, and hopefully you'll be able to see the benefit of using the new program. So we'll just jump into the second question here. And the second question is, how would you rate your current methodology of managing meeting minutes or your construction project? So we'll give about 15 more seconds to run through that. All right, and I'll close that off. And we'll take a look at the results. So somewhat satisfied. Again, 66%. A lot of people not satisfied or reasonably satisfied. So hopefully, like I mentioned, you'll be able to see the value of the new program that we've created. And I'd love to see everyone in the very satisfied category. Obviously, after being able to take a look at the new program and maybe run through it in your own organization. So with that, let's dive in and have a look at the new Meeting Minutes program and what it has to offer. So the best place to start for us to start is obviously in the Meeting Minutes log. The log obviously should look familiar to all of you, and what I've done here is organize my log to show each meeting by track. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to create a meeting, right? That's the fundamentals, the basics. How do we create meetings? How do we get everyone in the same room at the same time? And this is what our new meeting creation screen looks like. So again, bringing us back to a little bit of a new workflow with Meeting Minutes. We have a number of different states of a meeting. And this state is the meeting creation screen. So for those of you using Meeting Minutes currently, you should be familiar with the track setting, selecting a track. And what a track is, for those of you who aren't familiar, is basically like a constant thread or a constant overarching topic that you want to be discussing in your meetings. And again, those of you who are familiar with Meeting Minutes should be pretty familiar with the concept of tracks. If you need to create new tracks, obviously with permission, you can do so by clicking the Create Track function, and this will launch another window for creating some of your basic overarching values that will sort of carry through that track. Again, those of you familiar with the current Meeting Minutes program, this should look pretty familiar. I'm not going to dive too much into this today, but creating new tracks is available within the Create New Meeting function. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a health and safety track. We'll call this the bi-weekly HNS meeting. And what we can also do is set, location. A lot of people are using Zoom these days, and so we'll set that as our location. We'll have the meeting start at 9:30 and go till 10:30. And then what we want to do is we want to add our invitees, right? We have some people that may be required, some people that may be sort of optional attendees. We can select distribution lists if we have those available to us, and those will pre-populate. If we wanted to remove anyone from that distribution list, we can simply do so by clicking the X. We'll add some additional attendees as well. And let's add a few of these here. The other thing that we have here is the concept of guests. So guests are non-project contacts. There may be consultants that we're bringing in for a particular purpose, but we want to make sure that we're capturing that those individuals are going to be present in the meeting. Quick note that any guests that are added to a meeting, by default, we're assuming that they're present. So these are just sort of free-form fields to make sure that we're capturing any guests that may be in attendance for our meeting. And then what we can do is we can go ahead and select our agenda topics. So given that this is a health and safety meeting, we'll throw safety in there, and then we can populate that with a few items. let's say PPE and masks. Those are obviously going to be some hot topics. We're also going to throw signage in there. And as you're sort of building your meeting, you'll notice that there are a few toggles that you can play around with. This is a really big feature that we've added to Meeting Minutes. Before, you kind of had to number each one of your items in order to make sure that they were in the right order. But the new toggles will do that automatically. So if you're toggling a particular topic, it'll carry all of the items with it. If you are toggling, or if you're looking to change around particular items, let's say I want to talk about masks first, you can simply drag and drop, and this will reorder the items in the actual active meeting. And I'll show you what that active meeting screen looks like as well as soon as I finish populating my agenda. And let's say I want to add in a new topic here. Let's call it security. As soon as I click away, I'll be prompted to add that particular topic if it's not already part of the list. And again, one of the nice things here is that what if I, by accident add a particular topic or a particular item within a topic that maybe is inappropriate, I can simply drag and drop that item into a different topic and have it populate there. And just really nice, easy way to reorder, organize your meeting ahead of time and make sure that everything is looking good. So I'll go ahead and save that. Again, we have the ability to add existing files into this particular meeting to drag and drop brand new files if I want to do that. And this is the screen that you're going to use to basically set the agenda and set all of the attendees and time and place for your meeting. Once I've done that, once everything is set and ready to go, I sort of have two options. If I'm creating this meeting on the fly and I just want to go right into starting the meeting, I can click Start Meeting. If this is a meeting that's going to be happening sometime in the future, I want to make sure that everyone is aware of this meeting ahead of time. I can click Publish. And what Publish will do is it will send out a notification to all of the invitees. And that notification looks something like this, which is, it's a fairly basic notification. When the meeting is going to take place over here, time, date, nice handy link directly to the Zoom if that's how you're running your meetings, and also a direct link back into the published meeting for those who want to review the agenda ahead of time. So that's kind of like what the notification is going to look like. That is what the notification is going to look like to any of your invitees. And just a simple way to give them the basic information and allow them to access that meeting, of course, if they have access to your meetings based on the security that you've set for them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump into another meeting track that I've already kind of been working with a little bit. And this is, again, a published meeting. So all of my invitees should have received a notification about this meeting well ahead of time. And what I'm going to do now as the organizer, the person who's going to initiate this meeting, is I'm going to click Start, and that'll take us directly into the meeting. And there's a number of things that I want to draw your attention to here. So the first is, this is now in a live meeting. And we have the title of the meeting is active, a space for editing the next meeting information. But the nicer part about this is the easy way that we can take attendance. So if I want to say that all of these people are here, quickly select all. If I want to mark certain people as actually being absent, I can simply click on them to indicate whether they are absent or not. If I want to add guests that I didn't necessarily maybe anticipate were going to be in the meeting, but they've now decided to join us. And again, for my records, I want to make sure that they are accounted for. I can add as many guests as I want. So I'll add 2 here. And again, access to all of the documents that I may have added to this meeting. So they're all pre-populated there for me to see and open ahead of time if need be. And then we can sort of jump right into the actual meeting itself. So this is a different meeting, not the one that I just created. This is the follow-on meeting for our weekly project coordination that we have with all of these individuals here. And as you can see, what we've done is we've really kind of opened up the space and cleaned things up a bit to make it really clear sort of what the item is that we're talking about, what the general topic is, and then what the items are within those topics, who's going to be responsible for executing anything that we talk about in this meeting, and what their due dates and responsibilities will look like. The other nice feature that we have here is the history tab. So these items are potentially going to stay open for several meetings, and being able to quickly glance at what the history of these particular items are makes it really nice to see kind of where we're coming from and where we're going. And then so then we're going to go through and take our notes. Now let's say everyone was wearing their PPE this week and we had no issues, which I'm sure is the case for all of you. And again, sort of going through, and let's say I continue on and I'm populating all of these items. The other thing I wanted to draw your attention to here is the ability to add action items. So if you've assigned responsibility for a particular item, the person responsible will automatically get an action item, but you can create separate action items that aren't necessarily set to the person's responsibility here. If I wanted to link the conversation to existing change items, I can do that and select those change items from the list here. If I wanted to link this to existing issues in our system, or if I wanted to create new issues, I can do that as well. And those will be populated not only in our meeting, as you can see here, and accessible from the meeting, but also they'll be viewable on the report that we send out as well. So let's say I've completed my meeting. We've had all of the discussion about all of the items that we wanted to talk about today. And then I want to go ahead and close my meeting. So closing the meeting obviously is saving the meeting and closing it all in one fell swoop. And then what we can do is just review this, make sure that all of our notes are correct, all of them are accurate and up to date. And then what we may want to do is, if we decide maybe there's something that we need to actually take another look at, we can reopen the meeting. The reopen function, again, similar to V10X, is only available on the last meeting of a particular track. There is also an edit privilege, which will allow you to go back in time and make additional changes, again, with permission, with the appropriate privileges. Typically, that's left for sort of admin level individuals to take care of. But the next thing that we would want to do is to print a report of this meeting and potentially send that out to our attendees. We do have a brand new report that is going to be coming along with this new program. And there's a function here to include the last historical minute. So that would be the top minute in the history here. There are definitely some improvements that we're looking to add on to that functionality as well. And so look for those coming in future iterations of this program. But for now, we have the ability to have the current minute and the last historical minute all included in that report. And just to give you a quick sense of what that report looks like, here's a quick sample. This obviously isn't from the exact meeting that I'm talking about, but a quick glance at who was present, who was absent. We have the list of topics underlined here with the items themselves, who actually entered these items, what the status of these items are, and the minute for that item in particular. If there's more information, like if there are particular action items, you see some of these items actually have change items and issues attached to them as well. All of that's going to be captured. And then if this particular item has a bit of a history to it, the option to then include that last historical minute into the report. So that is how we sort of go through and basically kind of from start to finish, creating meetings, executing meetings, and then reporting on meetings. Now, the last thing that I want to draw some attention to as well, because really the whole point, coming back to the beginning of this, is the tracks, right? And making sure that we're continuing the same conversation from week to week. We're picking up the same items that we were talking about that maybe haven't been resolved, and dropping items that may have been resolved. So the create next meeting function serves exactly that purpose. And what that does is that'll carry all of our open topics, our open topics and items into that next meeting. So that's using the create next meeting button. And just to draw some distinction here, that is different than the add meeting button. If you select the same track from the drop-down list, it's not going to pre-populate with all of the agenda items, and that's again similar to the way that the V10X worked. So if you do want to sort of carry those items forward, using that create next meeting button is the way to go. And if you wanted to create a separate meeting, maybe under the same track, but maybe with different attendees and different particular items, that would be through the add meeting button there. The last thing I wanted to describe as well, while we've got you here, is because we do have a little bit more time, which is great, are the different statuses. So those of you familiar with V10X should be familiar with the various statuses that we have as well. So new items are items that are brand new to a meeting, and that's something that I didn't necessarily show you. When we're sort of in a meeting, we have the ability to add these items on the fly, which is really, really nice, giving you a lot more sort of flexibility and just quick, easy way to add particular items if need be. And the same thing goes with topics. Topics, brand new topics come up in our meetings at CMiC all the time, and we want to make sure that we're capturing those new topics. So the ability to do both of those things is definitely there. And then the status is, being able to close out meetings, defer particular items if they're not going to be discussed in that meeting. All sort of nice things, and there is some logic sort of tied to both of these, right? If we close out a meeting or we close out an item, that item is not going to be brought into the next meeting. It's not going to be forwarded. We're assuming we've had the discussion about this. We don't need to belabor the point. We don't need to talk about it in our next meeting. And so there is some nice logic there that will make sure that your next meeting is nice and clean. So that's everything that I wanted to show you guys today. I know looks like we're right on time, and I'm sure there are going to be lots of questions. So why don't we jump back over here, and I believe Dana is going to help us out with reading off some of the questions.
Hey Joel, Nitin here. I'll help you with some of the questions that have come in. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the great presentation. And as you were speaking, lots of questions have come in through the panel, and I see that Steve has already taken the effort to answer a few of them. Thanks for that, Steve. So I will jump into the ones that are still open here. So the first one is, will we still be able to number items? We refer to them in meetings.
Will you be able to number items? So the ability is always there to add particular numbers to, I guess, the description or the title of a particular item. So there is that functionality. With some of our earlier beta users, we've definitely heard some feedback. And I know that there exists a sort of standard numbering system for meeting minutes within construction. So that's definitely something we're taking a look at. But in terms of like the IDs, we've hidden those in the back end, so they aren't available to the users to view.
Thank you. The next one is, can the history be sorted by ascending and descending order? And this is also a question that they get a lot.
Yeah, so the history is just going to be populating in chronological order. So you'll have the last minute at the top, and the furthest back meeting all the way at the bottom. We currently don't have the ability to sort those items. We've gotten a few pieces of feedback on that history tab, and things that we are going to look at improving in that tab in particular. But that isn't part of the initial release with 12.2.
Thank you. And extending on that same question is, the next one is, will all previous history notes be available until that item is actually closed? Because we have items that may have more than 1 week of history that needs to be visible.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I showed it here, but that history bar does actually have a scroll functionality. So you'll be able to view the entire history of a particular item.
Thank you. The next question is, can we change the layout of who attended the meeting into, say, 2 columns? Sometimes they have, the user says sometimes they have lengthy or more number of people attending for a project meeting, and that could easily take up 1 page.
Yeah, so we've laid out the way that we've laid out the attendees. I'm assuming all of these attendees are mandatory attendees. So we've laid it out in a way that will maximize the space. I'd be curious to, I guess, maybe see the use case for having 25, 30 attendees and what that would look like. So it's definitely something we can take a look at. But for now, we just have the layout that I was showing earlier.
Thank you. The next question is, if an item is closed, but the action item is still open, does it still show up?
So the action item will show up in the user's My Actions tab. The action itself will not show up in any follow-on meetings if the item has been closed.
Right. Thank you. The next question is, can meeting items, that is topics, be numbered by meeting number and item number?
Yeah, so again, that kind of comes back to, I think, the first question. So the numbering that we have for those items is sort of hidden in the back end. We haven't exposed that numbering to the users. So right now we don't have that capability on the front end.
No worries. The next one is, can we set up an agenda template for a track?
So right now we can't. That's not something that I'm assuming what the question is at the global level, at the company level, if we want to make sure that every health and safety meeting that they're discussing, these 6 or 7 particular items. So that isn't something that we can do at the current time.
Okay, thank you. How do you create meetings that are not job specific? That is an operations meeting for, say, leadership.
So right now, the Meeting Minutes program is focused specifically for the execution of construction projects. So we don't really have an application that is like that's non-project specific. It's not something that I've ever actually heard of, but I can certainly see why that would be useful. The current program isn't really designed for that use case, though.
Thank you. The next one is, if for some reason the convener of the meeting, the person who's organizing the meeting is unable to make it to the meeting, can someone else initiate or start the meeting?
Yes. So they need to have the I believe it's the create and edit privilege, so they can other people other than the organizer can in fact start the meeting. I also just wanted to address Steve, our astute leader, actually just said, if you wanted to the previous question about creating company-wide meetings, you could create a generic project if you wanted to do that. Sort of create a generic project for like internal issues, and then create meetings through that. And that would be I guess a suitable solution if you really wanted to use this for those kinds of meetings.
Thank you. The next one is there an option available to print the meeting minute report and then include attached document files, because that would be a useful feature?
Yes, so that's there is a way to do it. You can launch, there are a number of printing options that can be launched. I believe the option is the form letters and other reports. And through that, you can actually choose to include attachments as well.
Thank you, Joel. And we have time for one final question, and that is, it would be helpful if there were an option or ability to reopen a closed agenda item in a future meeting, because sometimes the user closes an item only to find a couple of meetings later that the owner wants to reopen it.
Yes, so we do actually, we have that ability. It's not exactly straightforward, and I can reach out to the particular user to show them how to do that. I'm also happy to sort of create some usable content for others to show them how to do something like that. I will also mention that a lot of the Meeting Minutes training videos are actually available on a hosting platform that we're using right now called Wistia. So I will make sure that a link is provided to that webpage as well for anyone who wants to continue to dive into some of the features that I've shown today.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Joel, for that great presentation and demo that you put together for our audience today. Lots of questions came in, clearly indicating the level of interest in the refreshed meeting minutes. And for everyone today who attended the webinar, we trust that this was a very good investment of your time, and that you go back having learned something new. As Joel pointed out during the beginning of his session, a recording of this webinar will be made available to you shortly. And rest assured that even if we couldn't go through all of the questions today, we will assemble the questions that were asked during the live event and also provide written answers through our follow-up communication. So that's all the time that we have today. That's it from Team CMiC. Bye and have a nice day.